Hey, long time no see. So I've been thinking about taking these videos in a little bit more of a loose and casual style approach to let some more personality shine through. And I thought this video will be a good one to start with because the game that I'm covering today, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, is a little bit different than some of the other games I've covered on this channel before. Now, I've covered multiplayer games before on this channel, like Call of Duty 4, Overwatch, but with Counter-Strike Global Offensive, I kinda had to change my mindset a little bit going into this one. Let me get this out of the way first. I am no expert on the Counter-Strike series. In fact, my playtime with CSGO is actually under 100 hours. I know, rookie numbers. However, I still have some things I would really like to share about my time. So no, this isn't going to be a video where you see a lot of high-level tech and exciting clips. This won't be content of me flexing whatever rare skin I was able to get or plays I was able to do. You won't even really hear me detail the entire history of CSGO, because anyone willing to cover every single CSGO patch and significant esport event is a far braver soul than I am, because Jesus Christ. Instead, this video is essentially just going to be a brief look back at some of the key moments in development, a summary and analysis of the game systems, and thoughts of a newcomer to the series. Are you still with me? If you are, hey, thanks for giving me a chance. So, fun fact right away. Did you know that the main reason that CSGO was even created was because of Valve's desire to port CS Source over to consoles? Yeah, like most people, I always associated Counter-Strike with PC gaming, but interestingly enough, the whole inception behind CSGO was Valve's desire to capitalize on the console market as well. Which is strange because they have already done this before when they released the original Counter-Strike back on the original Xbox in 2006, a whole 2 years after Source was released. Valve is weird, man, I don't know. Well, somewhere along the way, Valve came to their senses and decided to just go ahead and make this port into a new title, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which released on PC in August of 2012, and even saw releases on the 360 and PS3. I'm not going to pay too much attention to those versions of the game because at this point they are basically unrecognizable to what CSGO is today. But hey, if you've ever been curious to see what CSGO was like at launch, these versions are essentially a time capsule back to 2012 as they have never been updated. And then the PS3's case even offers PlayStation Move support. Yeah, remember that thing? You can actually play CSGO with it, believe it or not. And the thought of playing a competitive shooter like CSGO with the circumcised version of a Wiimote might actually be my own personal hell. So CSGO launch saw a pretty decent number of players, but was also competing with Counter-Strike 1.6 as well as Counter-Strike Source. A lot of people were divided on their thoughts of the game. Some people thought it was a good middle ground between 1.6 and Source, brought Counter-Strike's visuals up to a modern standard, and made big improvements to the accessibility, while plenty of others thought the game was an imbalanced, bug-filled mess that wasn't worth moving away from the games that people have already been playing for years. If there's one thing that everybody knows about Counter-Strike fans is that they hate change, and they were just not biting with this new game. CSGO's first year wasn't necessarily a failure, but it didn't exactly set the world on fire either. Well, in August of 2013, that would all change with the release of one of Counter-Strike's now defining features, weapon skins. And just like that, suddenly everyone wanted to get in on Counter-Strike. Whether it was to show off the exclusive weapon finishes to your friends, or to make a quick buck off the Steam marketplace. More on that later. This was a massive shot in the arm to CSGO's momentum. Over the years, CSGO saw a number of substantial updates and events. There was the good stuff that boosted the game's notoriety, like its dominance in the esports scene, expansion to China, going free to play, and an absolutely insane amount of workshop content. There was also some of the bad stuff, like the phone verification with Prime matchmaking, the paywall behind scene competitive stats, the added items that completely shifted the meta overnight, and of course the lawsuits behind the gambling issues that ran rampant on third-party websites. Then there was just the plain weird decisions, like adding a fucking Battle Royale mode for reasons, and a battle pass? Yeah, more on that later too. Even with all the seemingly large changes over the past 10 years, CSGO has stayed pretty consistent for the most part. The stuff that worked well on day one still works well today. The formula has basically gone untouched, and whether that's Valve's desire to keep it the same or the Counter-Strike community's resistance to change is a little bit up in the air, but it's probably a mix of both. One thing's for sure though, people have not gotten tired of Counter-Strike, and it's only gotten more and more popular over the years. So I want to take a little bit of a dive into the formula to find out what people like so much about it, and what has made it the juggernaut that it is today. So, without further ado, let's talk about Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Alright, so CSGO's core gameplay loop is honestly pretty simple to explain. Two teams compete in objective-based game modes for the terrorist or counter-terrorist sides. The game is divided into round-based segments that reward players with cash for getting kills, completing objectives, and winning the round. With this cash, the player is able to purchase weapons and equipment at the beginning of the new round in order to give them an edge. This is called the buy phase. Dying during any round of the game will mean losing all the items you previously purchased and waiting until the next round to begin anew. Each team can either win by completing their objective or killing all the players on the enemy team. This repeats until the round win threshold is met, and boom, that is essentially every single game of Counter-Strike you will ever play. Obviously it is a lot, and I mean a lot more nuanced than that, but that's the basic gist of it. There are a few main modes that make up the main course of what CSGO has to offer. The first of these modes is the bomb scenario, where CTs must stop the terrorists from planting a bomb. This is far and away the most popular mode in Counter-Strike, and the one that nearly everyone associates with the series. It's easily my favorite game mode too. I think it strikes a good balance between the objective and elimination styles of play, creates some high intensity situations, and is by far the most supportive mode in the game. The next is hostage scenario, and being fully honest, I don't care for this one personally. I think some of the maps are interesting, but more often than not, I find the actual hostages are a non-factor, and most rounds end without one ever really being picked up in favor of the two teams killing each other. Both of these modes can be played either casually or competitively. The casual offerings usually have a 10v10 player cap, people can join and leave as they please, and there is no restrictions on the death cam. Competitive is where the majority of the action happens though. The game is limited to 5v5, and there's some minor differences in the economy, round time, and limit, as well as friendly fire being enabled to make the stakes a little bit higher. And then lastly there is Wingman, which is essentially a 2v2 version of bomb scenario with smaller sections cut off from the bigger maps, and I think these are pretty fun, especially if you can get a friend involved. Now there are plenty of modes in other games that do a very similar thing to what Counter-Strike has to offer. Both Call of Duty and Rainbow Six Siege have a variety of modes that scratch a very similar itch to CSGO. So, what does Counter-Strike do differently to really stand out from those games? Well, the answer to that is kind of interesting, because Counter-Strike doesn't really do anything to stand out. And that's why it's different. See, within the past decade and a half, every shooter seems to feel the need to try to stand out from all the others by having something a little different. There are games that have create a class systems, advanced movement, heroes or operators with different abilities, vehicles, a million weapon attachment options, pay to win garbage, just a ton of different shit to make the game seem different and more complex. CSGO, for as modern of a shooter as it is, doesn't have any of that. Hell, a lot of the guns you can't even aim down sights with, and there isn't even a sprint button, and that's almost like a standard nowadays. At face value, this might sound kind of boring. Like, you're telling me I can't grapple hook off of a building and headshot somebody from across the map? I can't jump out of a jet going Mach 10 and blow up another jet with an RPG? I can't build a monument of shit and then wallbang somebody and hit the gritty on them? What's the fucking point? Why would I play this game? Well, within the limited mechanics that CSGO has comes an absolute absurd emphasis on mastering what is there, as well as increasing your game knowledge and awareness. What exactly does that mean? Well, some of the main components that determine how successful you can be at CSGO involves things such as understanding the small maneuvers that can affect your game, mastering your weapon's fire patterns, having extensive map knowledge, communicating effectively with your team, and not getting angry when someone in the game calls you a slur.
Hey, Yellow, you're a
And trust me, that last one will come up a lot. These are all very common practices in other competitive shooters. However, when you take an overall look at what separates the players into different skill levels, you'll find that other games usually have those tiers defined by their central gimmick. But for over a decade, CSGO has had the same exact design principle, which it carried over from Source, and even the original Counter-Strike before that. So let's take a few minutes to break down some of the things that really define the moment-to-moment gameplay of CSGO. Let's talk about the gunplay first. So at a glance, you might assume that CSGO would play like any other FPS, but that couldn't be further from the case. Weapons each have their own different spray patterns that will require the player to not only master it in order to use effectively, but also how CSGO's movement contributes to those interactions. Your goal in Counter-Strike is to aim for the head, because headshots are almost always a one-hit kill, assuming you don't have any armor. Well, the longer you shoot your gun, the wider those crosshairs become, meaning your gun becomes less accurate over time. This essentially means that it's almost always better to shoot your gun as if it was a burst-fire weapon or even a semi-auto. Beyond that, any extra movement will also increase your gun's inaccuracy. So jumping and moving while shooting is only advised in the closest of close quarters situations, and even then there might be better options. Slow walking, crouching, and standing still on the other hand reduce your weapon's crosshairs and allow for much more accurate shooting. Be careful though, getting shot in this game fucking sucks. Assuming the shot doesn't kill you, you'll be halted dead in your tracks, making you an even easier target to kill. This is a surprisingly deep system that causes players to almost go against their instincts by segmenting the strafing and shooting into two different actions in order to win gunfights. The gunplay definitely isn't perfect though, especially when it comes to weapon balance. In fact, I would say the vast majority of the weapons are pretty lackluster in this game. For the pistols, most of them are usable, but I honestly feel like the Desert Eagle is just far and away the best choice for the pistol round, as well as a strong backup weapon in later rounds. The SMGs are pretty much all okay for the most part. I usually end up taking the MP7 during the second round if I don't have enough cash for a rifle, and these are serviceable, but nothing too remarkable. Now the rifles, on the other hand, easily the best class of weapon in the game. These compose of assault rifles and snipers, and holy shit, everyone uses these whenever given the chance. Some weapons such as the AK-47, M4A1S, M4A4, and of course the AWP are all absolutely iconic at this point. But even some of the lesser used rifles such as the AUG, SCAR-20, FAMAS, and Galil AR are all super viable options in their own right. That brings us to the heavy weapons, which are the machine guns and shotguns, and being fully honest, I think these are mostly a waste of time. I find the shotguns to be wildly inconsistent, and with a game that has such a low time to kill already, I think there are better short range options available. And the machine guns, good god, call it a skill issue, tell me to get good, but holy shit, I cannot get a kill with these things to save my life. They bring your movement to a crawl, they are very inaccurate, and while it's true you barely ever have to reload these things, I just cannot stand to use them. The weapon balance in general has gone through a number of reworks over the years, and some weapons that got added post-launch definitely came with their fair share of issues, but as it stands now, I think the game is in an okay enough spot that it's still enjoyable. There are some other pieces of equipment to consider too. Grenades are another big choice, for example, and you have a number of options to choose from. You have high explosive grenades, which ironically I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I've seen somebody get a kill with these pieces of shit. You have flashbangs, which are excellent for making a push, smoke grenades, which are great for blocking enemy vision and covering your teammates, Molotovs and incendiary grenades are the de facto way for shutting down choke points and doing damage over time, and these are all great. And the decoy grenades are there too if you want to get a little crazy with it. There's some other pieces of equipment including armor for your body and head, and even a taser that might as well just be a gimmick weapon for how few situations can actually be useful. Though with enough map knowledge and strategy, you can definitely make this thing work. Knowing the maps of CSGO is a thing that's going to be one of your greatest assets in your playtime. Each CSGO map has a number of chokes that are often where the two opposing teams will meet and where most of the engagements will take place. These points become so important that it's often worth moving to those chokes as fast as possible in order to get it set up, which may mean deciding to alter your preferred route depending on which position you spawn in at. Knowing the fastest route to take by moving quickly with your knife, what areas people often camp in, and where the grenade spots and sightlines are imperative to winning the game. There are a variety of communication methods to use too, with context-sensitive pings, as well as the text and voice chat, though your mileage may vary on how helpful these will actually be. Honestly, coming up with strategies for the maps in this game is a large part of the appeal for some, as it adds a whole tactical element to the package. The maps themselves are pretty good for the most part too. Each game mode has maps that are specifically designed for those respective modes in order to make them as balanced as possible. Or at least they should be. Okay, while I enjoy most of the maps in this game, some have a few problems that really do end up giving one side an advantage over the other. Now I do think that most of the bomb scenario maps should give the CTs a slight advantage in order to incentivize them playing a little bit more aggressively. However, I think some maps like Nuke and Train just give a few too many options for approach that can easily overwhelm the T side. Then there is Vertigo, which is a bit of a clusterfuck already with its multiple layers, but when you can hear player footsteps the same way even if they're on a different level of the map than you are, it basically makes using audio clues completely useless. Not to say I dislike those maps, I still think they're a pretty good time. All the maps I would say I rather enjoy, with Inferno, Mirage, and of course Dust 2 being among my favorites. I can't say the same for the hostage scenario maps though. Obviously these are going to be a little bit more terrorist side focused, but as I said earlier, I don't think any of these maps really allow the players the ability to reliably escort hostages out. Some maps are okay like Agency, but then you also have maps like Office. Fuck that map. Most of the maps in CSGO have been around for years. In fact, out of the 13 official bomb scenario maps, 6 of them were in the original Counter-Strike. This isn't a bad thing, mind you, and in the past couple years, Valve has added some more maps here and there. However, I do think for as long as CSGO has been around, there should be a wider selection of maps for the casual pool at the very least. In fact, look at all these maps that have either been cancelled or removed, and you just have to ask, why? There also exist smaller maps for the more laid-back wargame playlists, which are fine for the most part. They're a little small so the spawns can be pretty shitty, and there definitely are some balance issues here and there. but I think they add some pretty interesting locales, and they're harmless for the most part. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention about these extra modes. So in addition to the previously mentioned game modes, there are a ton of other options too. There's of course your standard deathmatch, which I actually think makes for pretty decent aim training. Then there are the options in the war games, which essentially include a number of game modes that I think are pretty fun. First up is Arms Race, which essentially acts as gun game. These are always some of my favorite modes in FPS games, so I'm glad to see it here. Next is Demolition, which essentially acts as a shorter version of Bomb Scenario with pre-selected weapons. I don't know, didn't care for this one. Next up is Flying Scoutsman, which lowers the gravity, increases the jump height, and gives everyone a sniper. Alright, that's pretty fun, I can get behind this. Wait, what the fuck? What did I do? I'll just rejoin, and I'm banned? Wait? Why? What the fuck? Well, as it turns out, this mode is essentially used by bots for XP farming now, and any human player gets automatically kicked. That's some bullshit. Fix your fucking game, Valve. Lastly is Retakes, which essentially is the second half of Bomb Scenario if half your team died and the T side actually managed to plant the bomb. Still fun, mostly forgettable. Speaking of forgettable, let's talk about Danger Zone. Counter-Strike's take on the Battle Royale formula, because honestly, I'm pretty sure Valve forgot about it themselves. So 18 players, yeah, that's right, 18, bear with me. Fight it out in a small island-sized map, collecting resources to be the last one standing while the map slowly shrinks in playable size. You know the formula by now, and honestly, CSGO doesn't do much to really shake things up. You can collect money to call in drones to give you a limited selection of weapons. Okay. You get these weird little perks at the beginning of the game that can slightly alter how you might play. Cool, but pretty inconsequential. And the gunfights are a little bit more long range now, so that's different, and that's about all I have to say about this. It really is that unremarkable. It doesn't have the polish of Warzone, it isn't even close to as fun as Apex Legends, and it doesn't have the goofy shit factor that Fortnite has. Honestly, who is this for? I'd rather play PUBG. Yeah, I said it. Speaking of things that cause me pain, let's talk about the CSGO community. Now, not everyone that plays CSGO is awful, just most of us are. But to be somewhat positive for a second, there's some really awesome stuff with the community. The amount of content in the workshop, for example, is absolutely staggering. You have tons of custom skins for weapons, gloves, and your player model. You have great custom maps with different aim practices and movement ranges. Hell, I even found great value Rocket League. I hate it. Plus, some of the community maps such as Anubis, Cache, and Tuscan were eventually promoted to being full-fledged maps, which is just awesome to see. The CSGO esports scene is also incredibly massive. Honestly, this is a big appeal of the game for a lot of people. I'm not a big esports guy myself, I just like to see the highlight clips on Reddit, but I still think this is massive for the game's long-term success and sustainability. Seeing what strategies, flanks, plays, and interactions that the pro players are able to pull together is a huge draw and is a large help to how CSGO has had such a large player base. With that large player base brings significantly lower queue time, plenty of options for community servers, and the ability or quest to group up with someone so you always have someone to play with, which is nice. Now for the bad stuff. Holy fuck, what a toxic bunch of assholes this community can be. You have everything you can imagine here from a competitive game. Smurfing to dunk on new players, elitist assholes who shit on anyone that is below them on the leaderboard, people who antagonize and discriminate towards everyone over the open voice chat and text chat, just turn that shit off. People who are trying to be the team leader in casual games and get angry when no one listens, people who grief by killing or annoying their teammates, people who abuse the kick and report function, people who spend the entire game AFK, bots that are farming XP, hackers with aimbot, people who defend the hackers with aimbot after they get called out because it's just a game, bro. Like, what the fuck, guys? Now let me be clear, this isn't the worst community for a video game that I've ever seen. It's the second, next to League of Legends. That's not good. And don't get me wrong, it's not like this happens every game. Just every other game. The writing is on the wall for why this is. I mean, it's a free-to-play game with an incredibly large amount of people playing from all over the world with a high skill ceiling that essentially has a culture of elitism around it that doesn't really have a whole lot of consequences for doing any of the previously mentioned things. I guess what else can I say, but what can you honestly expect? Keeping in line with our discussion about things I don't like about CSGO, let's talk about the monetization. Oh, let's talk about the monetization. I'll talk about the obvious thing in a second because holy fuck is that a big one. But let's talk about one of CSGO's more baffling methods of monetization first. I'm of course talking about 360 stats. This essentially allows players to get some statistics of previously played matches in the hopes of improving for a measly sum of 99 cents a month. Why the fuck is this even a thing? You're telling me I have to pay a subscription fee just to get a better idea of my performance when third-party websites that do the same exact thing for free already exist? Go fuck yourself, Valve. This is ridiculous. Add on the Battle Pass-like system is still a thing, loot boxes are still around, and of course all the stuff that comes with the skin gambling situation, and you have potentially one of the scummiest examples of monetization in modern gaming. So the thing that launched CSGO to the stratosphere was the advent of weapon skins, which I always thought was weird as being the pivotal point for Counter-Strike's mainstream success. Like, other games had cosmetic purchases for years, so why was it such a big deal now that it was in CSGO? Well, whatever it was, player numbers skyrocketed year over year, which created an even higher demand for these skins. While skins were initially rewarded for just playing the game, eventually a loot box-like system was created in order to incentivize players to spend that sweet $2.49 in order to see what rewards they might get. We all know how the whole loot box fiasco has gone, and in some parts of the world is still going. But I'm still surprised that they were able to get away with it for as long as they did. Like, not knowing the odds for prizes, the slot-like presentation, vibrant colors, enticing sounds. Yeah, they knew exactly what the fuck they were doing when they were designing this. I mean, it clearly worked out well for them until things got a little problematic. So as the demand for highly sought-after skins rose, Valve offered the solution of providing a marketplace on Steam for players to purchase and trade skins from one another, with a price cap of $1,800. Well, suffice to say, this didn't work for a number of reasons, with one of the biggest being that players couldn't withdraw their money from their Steam account after selling their skins due to different regulations. Could you imagine selling a skin for $1,800 and just having that money sit in your Steam account? And CSGO is the only game that you play? I mean, it's better than nothing for sure, but that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, what were you supposed to do with that money then? Well, eventually third-party websites started popping up all over the place that allow players to get away with using Steamworks API in order to just do a ton of different shit, from being able to take out money that was earned on CSGO skins, to having skins sell far above Valve's regulated price, to scamming people, to allowing children to gamble, to betting skins on CSGO tournaments, to rigging said tournaments in order to receive a bigger payout, fuck those guys, to content creators tricking their viewers into using affiliated sites to make a quick buck, even bigger fuck those guys, to creating its own cryptocurrency, to having bots farm the game in a desperate attempt to make money, to money laundering criminal organizations being formed. Like, Jesus, what the fuck? This is a video game. This reads more like something you hear from a professional boxing match than a first-person shooter. The whole skin gambling fiasco impacted nearly every part of the game, from the casual players to content creators to the esports teams to Valve themselves, to how other developers utilize Steam for trading items, to people that have never even played CSGO before, to even government officials stepping in order to just address what the fuck was going on. And the issue still isn't even fully resolved. Like, there was a CSGO skin that recently sold for $400,000. Like, what the fuck, dude? $400,000 for a skin that looks like a blue paint bucket sneezed on an AK-47? What's going on here? Valve isn't fully to blame for this. I definitely feel like the situation went unchecked for far too long, and while I know it was never Valve's intention, at the end of the day, they were really the only people that had any authority that could put a real stop to this. They were the ones that created an incredibly abusable system that gave dishonest people a platform to do what dishonest people do. Thankfully, this is something that's mostly easy to ignore if you just want to sit down, play the game, or stick to buying things off of Steam. However, the impact that this has made on not just the state of CSGO, but as the video game industry itself, has to be noted. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is a game I truly and honestly really enjoy. I think the gameplay is an incredibly addictive, easy to learn, difficult to master sandbox that allows me to have the option to either turn my brain off after a long day or hop on and get my sweats in. It offers a variety of modes, maps, and community creations that I could see keeping me occupied for hundreds of hours of playtime. However, it's not all perfect. I do think that the weapon balance could be tweaked to give players more options. The map selection is rather small for a game that is full of original Counter-Strike offerings, and I think there is a lot to be done in regards to the game's community and monetization practices. Overall, I would still recommend that anyone who is looking for a deep competitive shooter to play should consider giving CSGO a shot. this game gets my full recommendation. As long as you're not trying to launder money with it. Just go join the Mafia. Well, that's all I got for you guys today, so thank you for watching. What was your favorite memory of Counter-Strike Global Offensive? Please be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section down below. And hey, if you enjoyed today's video, maybe consider giving it a like and subscribing. Thank you guys again, and I'll catch you in the next video.